So when we talk about Medicare for All, obviously what we mean is healthcare as a human right. Now, of course, recently Joe Biden, in that one interview he did on, I believe it was MSNBC or CNN, I forget which, but it was the same. It was in the same time that he did the one with Charlemagne and made the "You ain't black" comment, which he's got a lot of backlash for, and rightly so, because that was just totally uncalled for. And he basically said, I believe in healthcare as a right. But I ain't for Medicare for all. I will never be for Medicare for all. Joe, you senile old geezer. You just contradicted yourself. You said you believe in healthcare as a right, then you turn around and in so many words say healthcare is not a right. Anytime you let private profiteers dictate the cost of healthcare, and you have to pay out of pocket for it at your whether you choose to or not, well then guess what? It's not a right. It's a privilege. That's the definition of a privilege. Healthcare as a right means it's free at the point of service. It's there for you no matter what, which means, by definition, it has to come out of tax dollars. Now, I'm not talking about, when we talk about Medicare for All, we're not saying that we need to raise taxes, right? You could do Medicare for All right now without raising taxes. But to be more accurate on this, if you, again, I went over this in an earlier segment. You look at a paycheck, all right? You have the premium. That goes to zero. Your tax section of Medicare, yes, it goes up a little bit. But it's half the cost, and it's free at the point of service. Free at the point of service. This is a big one, because this is something that the naysayers love to fearmonger about. It ain't free. It's going to go up. It's going to be real expensive. We can't afford that. So commie, so social. So, needless to say, none of these people who just yammer on about that kind of stuff, they can't prove it, because they know they're wrong. Right? They've just been indoctrinated into that, capitalism is awesome, socialism and communism are the same thing crowd. And they can't see what we're really talking about. Every other developed country in the world does it to one extent or another. And what I have in mind here is it's something that I've been thinking about recently, and I think it's a good start. It wouldn't be all that professional, I guess you could say, right? But it would be a good start. If there were a way to form a kind of rentier community, okay? Not just an apartment complex, but multiple ones, like a residential location, a whole residential location. Instead of being privately owned by an individual landlord or even a company of some kind or something like that, it would be owned and operated by the tenants. All right? And what they would do, that would drive down the cost of their rent anyway. But what you can incorporate into the cost of rent at this point, instead of private profits for the landlord or any company in there, is you can gear it towards a community healthcare service. So let's be simple here. Let's take an apartment complex. Well, in that apartment complex, you have your local gardener, okay, who grows the food and everything like that, maybe with a hydroponic system for argument's sake. And then, as part of your rent, you get healthcare coverage in that community, being a tenant, free at the point of service. You have doctors in that community, and they do house calls. You could go to their office if you wanted to, but they could also come to your house. And it's free at the point of service. Again, that's covered in the cost of your rent. And the more tenants you have in that community, the more the lesser share of the burden each tenant has, which lowers the cost. Not only the cost for healthcare overall, but the cost for the rent. But if you get more doctors, naturally it follows that would go up a little bit. But as we keep fighting for $15 an hour, and shoot, man, even more than that, they say that if wages had kept up with inflation, we would probably be making closer to $33 an hour. Yeah, imagine that, right? I mean, just my own 2 cents on this. Amazon workers especially should be making $50 an hour. $50 an hour. 50. Jeff Bezos could afford that. But nah, he ain't going to do it. He's too greedy, too ruthless, too much of an asshole. He's got to be taken down one way or another. He's got to go the way of John D. Rockefeller. That his monopoly has to be broken up like Standard Oil. Maybe more so. Anyway, back to the topic, Medicare for All in the community. that's one way to do it. It's just one idea I had. You basically have a tenant owned and operated rentier community, and the money you pay into your rent basically pays for all the community services. Healthcare being one of them. It's a good start, especially if you have marijuana growers or magic mushroom growers, or both in your community, and you want to use them for medicinal reasons, recreational reasons. Fine, okay, not hurt anybody. Well, then that helps, right? Competition for pharmaceutical companies outside of that community. So, boom, there you go. And not most often, healthcare is just basic needs. Basic physical checkups, maybe treating a cold or a flu or a sore area. Just the basic things, they can be covered. Maybe some minor treatment that requires some resources. You know what I mean? To start with, this is just like a minor program to get things rolling. It wouldn't be permanent, of course. It's just a step towards a national Medicare for All system. But I just think it's worth looking into. I think it's a good idea. It's worth a try, and we should talk more about it and consider it. So there we are, guys. That's one of my take on healthcare for today.